Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome everyone.
Yeah, we got kind of a light subject this week. Instead of talking about all the, well, I don't know, it could turn into a heavy subject, you know?
It could.
I mean,
every time we say that, we end up having a 2+ hour podcast.
Yeah. So, right now we're thinking it'll be kind of a short one, but we'll see. The topic is, there seems to be a lot of extra stuff in the Catholic Church. And you go into any one subject, let's say the Eucharist or Mary, and you can kind of dive into it and you find not just the doctrines, but the culture behind it, or at least the culture that develops from it, and the theology that kind of permeates the subject. And the question is whether a normal Catholic, like, you know, one of us who we have a job that has nothing to do with being Catholic, and we're raising a family and we're doing all kinds of other things that we're involved in, do we have a real obligation to kind of explore these things and try to understand them, or try to come to a bigger understanding, and also to kind of be a part of maybe devotions and actions that might, you know, that might involve more time than we had really thought we would be giving, you know?
Right. Yeah, what's the level? I mean, you could be a Christian that you might, you know, do your daily work duty for your family and spend a significant amount of time every day in prayer. You know, you might spend an hour a day in real prayer, go to Mass every Sunday, and so on and so forth, but only have a understanding of the faith that goes maybe just a tiny bit further than the prayers you say, the formulaic prayers you say, maybe the prayers of the Rosary, the Nicene Creed at Mass, and stuff like that. Well, if everything you're doing is the right thing to do to get to heaven anyway, do you have an obligation to put aside time, to expend effort, to try to deepen your intellectual understanding of these various parts of the Catholic faith? And you know, the question occurred to me because we actually go into a lot of that stuff while we're doing our podcast. We get into a lot of it in private conversations too, just, you know,
right,
like while we're hanging out at Dad's or something like that. And we kind of have a knack. I don't mean a knack in the sense that we're good at it. I mean, we have a motivational knack for it. We have a knack in the sense that we're inclined to find enjoyment in pursuing those kinds of things. But is there an obligation to? And if there is, to what extent, and how much is enough, and so forth, like that.
You know,
that's kind of the question that I started wondering.
One of the things that I would add to this, you mentioned someone who goes to church, who does the things they're supposed to be doing, all the normal things that you think of in order to get to heaven, but you also said maybe even spends an hour of prayer per day. And
yeah,
I have a hard time.
Yeah, what I mean is a good prayer life. It's not somebody. It's not a hour a week Christian who gets their hour of religion by going to church and then otherwise doesn't think about God. And, you know, not that kind of person.
I don't think someone who spends time praying would not do this already. You know?
Oh, I see what you mean.
Because
that would be kind of like.
Would you just say the Hail Mary over and over again and that's what your prayer life is? Probably not. I mean, you have to have something to make your brain take part in this other than just saying words.
And you have to have some kind of understanding and knowledge that motivates you to want to say that Hail Mary over and over again, because otherwise it just seems like pointless muttering.
So let's take that part out and say someone who wakes up and says a prayer maybe before meals, and then goes and maybe says a prayer with their wife or whatever before they go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then
they wake up and say a morning offering, and maybe they say the act of contrition with their kids before they go to bed.
Yeah. And
grace before meals.
And then they go to church on Sundays, and if they sin, they go to confession and things like that. Is that enough?
Right. Or do they have to learn more? But that's I think you started on a kind of a line of thought that kind of provides a little bit of an answer when you were talking about how it's not likely that somebody spends an hour a day in prayer and doesn't pursue these other things, because you're right. That would be kind of like, say, being married to a woman for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And yet your knowledge of her is about the same as it was when you got married.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen.
It doesn't scan. It doesn't, if you actually pray, which is a communication with God that both obviously, you're saying things yourself, but there's the openness to, insights and inclinations coming the other way from God. But if you engage in that attention to God's presence right there, right here, right now, of any significant time regularly, you're going to want to know more about God. And since God doesn't, except in extremely rare cases, he doesn't really just sort of enlighten your mind or illumine your mind with direct knowledge about him that he kind of infused you with or anything like that. The way to do that is by learning. And again, we're assuming you're Catholic. You're already a believing Catholic, so you know this. By learning what he reveals through and in the church, including things like the lives of saints, things like the history of the teachings of the church, things like the development of theology in the church that has come to, not in a sense that all of the theology is there, is like dogmatically considered defined by the church, but the idea is that the good theology that's there is the theology that undergirds and supports and gives reasons for thinking of as reasonable the doctrines that the church does define.
Yeah. From the start, the church says you've got a couple things you have to do, but one of them is pray. Spend time in prayer. And if you're doing that, it can only lead to a deeper understanding, but what about, the next question is, let's say you do the minimum amount of prayer. Is there an obligation to do more than that? I meet guys like this all the time. Well, I go to church once a week. If I do something terrible, I go to confession, and, that's kind of it. I'm culturally Catholic, but after that, it's like, I say my prayers. What more does he want? And the thing about people like that is that they're the same kind of people that we talked about in the last podcast who easily swallow blue pills and who refuse to swallow a red pill. And they're the same ones who make it easy for the government to oppress the church and to oppress church members.
Yeah.
Not because they're evil, but because they've got such a weak understanding of theology that because they haven't been practicing it, they've been practicing it, but not digging into it. And I think it makes people, naive.
Yeah, that's a good word. Because, I mean, you could take something like, taking care of the poor, okay, feeding the poor, and make it what Christianity is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't mean to undermine the importance of charity, and especially care for the poor, loving the poor, as a Christian duty. But if you say that's what Christianity is all about, then you start thinking things like, well, my Christian obligation is to, for example, support whatever political movements concern themselves for the poor and offer material help for the poor.
That sounds a lot like a Democrat.
And I think that, maybe that's how the bishops in the United States, I mean, a lot of the bishops in the United States, maybe back in the 30s and 40s, were solid bishops, but, along, this is coming out of the Depression and everything, and along come Democrats with plans that include, top-down programs, federal level programs to make sure people have jobs, to make sure that the poor get better lives, to make sure, they put welfare programs in place.
Yeah.
And so bishops are only too eager to say, yeah, that's what we need because we're supposed to feed the poor.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the obligation to see to the poor and to love the poor is a much more personal and individual thing. Not that programs and societies and organizations that help the poor shouldn't exist, through which people can amplify their own individual efforts. So take like the Society of St. Vincent de Paul.
Yeah.
The wonderful society does a tremendous amount for the poor. And you can amplify the good that your money does by supporting them. And you can even become a member of the society that you support with your prayers. But it's not a government solution, and it doesn't need the government in order to exist. Maybe they get some money from the government. I don't know. But it's not the kind of organization that grows out of a top-down government program like that.
Yeah.
But that's more the kind of thing that, if you understood Christianity as a totality, that's where you would go, and you wouldn't be as tempted to say, yes, let's do it, to propositions of top-down government-driven material welfare programs.
And it's, even with something like that, that would be an easy way for someone even using something like that to fall into a trap if they ignored the demands of the church to spend time in prayer. Because you could consider yourself a good Christian and you say a couple prayers a day, and then you see, well, I've got to do some kind of work for the church, some kind of work for God. And here's St. Vincent de Paul, and I do that work, and it is for the church, and I feel really good when I do it because I'm helping the poor. And so that will be my time spent giving honor to God. But if you ignore the prayer, then again, you kind of sink into action that doesn't require a whole lot of understanding. If you combine that with prayer, then you have a good idea of what you're doing and why you're doing it. But when the prayer's gone, it's still just feeding the poor. And you don't even have a reason to do it other than the fact that you feel good about doing it. But if you don't come to a deeper understanding of Christianity and of God, then you start to think along the lines of, I'm doing X amount of work and I have X amount of money to work with for this organization to help the poor. And they do it for the church as part of a ministry of the church. But what if this government put in like 50 times that much money and they could take part of this work and they could do a whole lot more? And you would be tempted to think that if you didn't have the prayer life.
Right. And the prayer life and the associated, going out and deepening your understanding in order to enhance your prayer life.
Yeah.
Prayer, that's a good point, that how much prayer intersects with that right sense of, I guess, intellectual pursuit of knowledge of the truth. But you notice how often Jesus tries to go away alone to pray. Sometimes the crowds don't let him. They figure out where he's going and get there first.
Yeah.
But then after, that one time he sent the apostles out in groups, and they came back, kind of astounded that they were so successful, and, they were able to heal people, and people were listening to them as they were proclaiming the gospel. He said, okay, yeah, that's great. Now come away by yourselves and spend time in prayer.
Yeah.
Even then it wasn't, hey, great job, go do more. It was, okay, good. Now come away.
Now you got to pray.
Pray. Now the thing is, prayer itself can also, if it's not, let's say, guided by a growth of intellectual knowledge that you get from those who have gone before, the saints, that you also get from the sure teachings of the church and so forth, it can become its own kind of self-deluding cycle. You can pray and you can end up believing that you're receiving impulses from God to do things that are just the things that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I think, like Martin Luther probably had a lot of that. He probably was a master of self-deluding prayer, and he deluded himself into thinking that, well, as long as I pray and turn everything over to God because I can do nothing, well, then I'm off the hook, specifically when it comes to avoiding certain kinds of sin, because really I can't do anything by myself anyway, so I just put it all before God and he'll take care of it. And then I go on living my life of sin or whatever.
And if
that was kind of like the Lutheran way.
And if I'm praying and suddenly during a prayer I get the notion to do something, then that's probably God telling me to do it. And it's easy to think that way if you're down and determined to do something.
Yeah, you kind of work yourself into it, and it's important, again, part of deepening your understanding, deepening your faith through your understanding of your faith and the moral, the moral virtues and how they apply, so that you can practice them. They help you avoid stepping into errors like that.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the, one of the, I forget what the broader context she was talking, but Mother Angelica was talking. How she does her monologues at the beginning of her shows.
Yeah,
and she was talking about the guy that goes out and neighbors say hi as they're as they step out of their houses each morning to go to work and stuff. And one morning, the one neighbor says, I was praying to God last night, and he told me that he wants you to give me your boat.
Oh.
The guy's like, God told you that he wants me to give you my boat? It's like, yeah, God wants you to give me your boat. And the guy thought about it in a minute. He says, I'll tell you what, when God tells me that he wants me to give you your boat, we'll talk.
Yeah.
The televangelists are kind of like that,
right.
How they
God is telling you to give me money.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is, if it's even possible to spend time in real prayer and not pursue the theology behind it, then I would say, yes, you still have an obligation to do it. Because
how can you love what you don't know?
Yeah, you just can't. And, okay, you do the bare minimum to say get to heaven. I don't know.
But that's kind of treating God like a vending machine, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, we do the bare minimum at work, so I can understand someone saying, look, you know, I do X, Y, and Z. I sell gizmos, and I need to sell a certain amount to fill my quota. And after that, I guess I could do more to make more money, but the bills are getting paid, and I enjoy my weekends, and I enjoy my nights. And if I wanted to spend those nights and weekends doing work, I could make more money, but I'd rather enjoy myself during those times. And you could do that with a job. But first of all, you're not going to be very good at that job. And
true.
When it's time to, say, give promotions, or when the company's not doing well and it's time to lay someone off, guess who's getting laid off?
Yeah, it's the bare minimalist. Well, but you know, you're right though. It is a job. You could do that with a job. You know, selling whatever you're selling. I don't know, Jews harps or something. But the thing is, what if that was your mission? Like what if God appeared to you and said, you know what I want you to do with your life? What I put you here on this earth for is to go sell Jews harps to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, then you'd have an obligation to do more than the bare minimum that your company requires.
And also, in the end, you would, I guess not everybody likes their jobs, but I can tell you this, that if you spend more time than those, hours being logged, if you go deeper than that, you're going to get more out of your job.
Well, that's true.
You know,
that's true. There's a, I don't know, an
obviously,
art of, can we cuss on this podcast? The art of giving a shit?
Yeah. And I mean, if you, you know, I mean, obviously you can't spend every waking moment at work, but,
right.
If you only go 9 to 5, then it's going to be a job that you barely, get finished, and you're just not going to like it as much. If you take some of that home with you, not necessarily home with you, but you spend, you know, you see an article having to do with your industry and you take time out to read it because you want to know more about your job, well, you're going to get more out of your job, and you're going to like it more. And especially if your job is your mission, which means it should be all encompassing. It should kind of affect every part of your life the way our job as Catholics is. And, you know, God did give us a mission, and it's not just to do the bare minimum. And if you're doing the bare minimum, I kind of don't think you are doing enough to get to heaven.
You know, that's a good point too, because you're not owed, you know, God's not a vending machine.
Yeah.
You're not owed something by virtue of doing the bare minimum. You know, it's not like you've put your 50 cents into the machine and you pull the slot and your pack of cigarettes comes out. I'm showing my age here.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way with God. The church says these are the things you must do in order to be saved. But if you set out to do nothing more than absolutely necessary, God doesn't owe it to you to keep you sticking with it.
Yeah, it's not like, as long as I do this, I'll get to heaven, because that's not a promise from God. It's just the church's statement that this stuff has to be done in order to get to heaven.
Right. Then you've got to do all the stuff that that keeps you doing. You know, it's kind of interesting that my wife and I, we recently went and saw a lawyer. There's no way I could afford this, but my work has this really cool benefit. It's like, I don't know, $18 a month or something like that. Just a little bit of change. And for that, you get certain legal fees.
Oh, okay.
So, like, setting up a will and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it can cost, $7,000-8,000.
Yeah.
To do something like that. Well, I didn't have to pay for it because I've just got this service at work, and the attorney just bills the service.
That's cool.
But we went and set up. We actually did a trust rather than a will, but he was really good at explaining things, and it's kind of interesting how these are set up, and they're all always kind of the same in similar vein. The first couple of pages, and then maybe 1 or 2 pages at the end. That's what you want to happen. That's the thing that you need. And that's why you're there, and that describes the effect that you want to have. Okay. And then there's 18 pages in the middle of legalese and jargon and everything that has to be there in order to make those other things actually happen legally within the legal framework of the United States. Now, God isn't some kind of legal framework, but the point is, the church says, here's what you have to do to be saved. Okay, great. I do this. It starts with loving God. Yeah. But then there's all this other stuff that you need to do. It's not like you have to do it like the church is assigning it like a set of checklists, but you need to do it in order to accomplish the stuff that you have to do. Yeah. Because we're human, and we need that as humans.
Yeah. The other part of this is that if you think of your relationship with God as kind of a friendship, God wants to provide certain things. And if you're not spending any time with him, he can't provide that. He wants to give you stuff. It's not just that he needs you to do things. There's an abundance of charity that he has for you, but not choosing only to get by on a phone call a week. You're missing the opportunity that he's trying to give to you.
It's kind of like, if you've got, I don't know, you feel like you want to give your wife affection and gifts, and you want to do things for her and make her life nice and reward her for cooking for you and cleaning the house and stuff. And so you're always you invent things to make her tasks easier. You buy her jewelry so that she can look nice when she goes out. You do little things for her that she can brag to her friends, because girls like to get together, women like to get together, gossip about their husbands and stuff like that. And along with that is affection and everything. But so you've got all this readiness, but she's not interested in any of it. All she's interested in is she'll do the duties, the cooking, the cleaning, and then have a half-hour conversation with you, maybe once a week. Yeah.
About the kids.
Check on the kids, that kind of stuff. And it's all just kind of utility and nothing personal. So if you were like that kind of husband and you had that kind of wife, you could kind of see how that might feel.
And it might work on a practical level,
for some couples.
The bills are getting paid, the kids are getting raised, they seem to be getting off to school and then starting careers, and they're not psychopaths. So on a practical level, okay, that did seem to work, but it could have been a whole lot more fun, Yeah.
Yeah.
It could have been real fun.
Honestly, I mean, it seems to work on it may, in some marriages, seem to work on a practical level. in reality, if most marriages, if they really went that way, if that was all the woman was interested in, the marriage probably wouldn't last.
Right. And
they would get into arguments about spending time together or about what to do on weekends, and you know,
and there probably wouldn't be too many children.
Yeah, that too.
Because you need time for that too.
That's right. Got to set aside time. So that's that's kind of a position that you can end up kind of putting God in if all you want to do is the bare minimum necessary in order to get to heaven. Well, the reason you're in heaven is not because of heaven for its own sake. You're in heaven because heaven is where God is. That's the point. It's God. It's the relationship that is the motivator, the first good and the ultimate good. And it's kind of like Jesus even made a parable about that, about the king or whatever who was setting up the wedding for his son, and he did all the preparations and sent out invitations to all the important people of the town and everything, and for one reason or another, everybody had their something else that they had to go off to, and so nobody came to the wedding.
Oh yeah, and he ended up inviting.
So he invited the gutter people, basically.
Yeah, I think they killed. Didn't they kill the son or something?
No, that's the one with the vineyard.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay. Here's where the difficulty comes in. You're one of those guys who goes to church once a week, and if someone really got you to tell the truth about it, it's something you tolerate, and really not much more than that. You tolerate it because your life's pretty comfortable and you don't have anything that you end up praying about. And you just don't have any interest in learning about God or finding out more. And so someone introduces you to, say, a podcast, and it's like, even if you end up listening to it out of just because you promised you would do it, and so you listen to it, but you just can't find any interest in it. Where do you turn? If I were going to try to convince someone in that position, see, I've always found this stuff interesting, and I've always wanted to find out more, and just because of the way we were raised, I've, even at my worst sin, I still had a mind of, I need to stop and I need to somehow find my way back to God. But if you don't have that inside you, how, and here's these jokers on a podcast saying, you actually have a duty to look into this stuff and to learn more about it and make it a part of your life. How do you do it? Yeah, how do you develop an interest?
How do you generate the motivation interiorly?
That's not easy.
No.
Especially if you're comfortable in life, If you don't have any major crisis.
There is,
I can't
promise that this works for everybody. What's that?
I gotta get something from the kitchen. It'll take me a minute.
Okay. I can't promise that this will work for everybody. But there's a phenomenon in the human condition that two things kind of occur. One is that the more you know about something, the more you tend to be interested in that thing. Sometimes it's like, okay, a new topic comes up and it's like, oh man, shoot me now. I don't care anything about this. But you pick up a thing here and there through osmosis, maybe because it's something your wife's into, maybe because your buddy at work listens to that channel on the radio that they're talking about it all the time. Whatever it is, and you start developing a familiarity with the terminology of the topic, the jargon, the the concepts or the people or whatever it is that's involved in it and how they relate to each other, and you start picking up on connections. So they'll say something about some aspect of it, and then it'll actually register in your mind that that's relates to this over here too. And the more of those connections that you develop in your brain, I think it's kind of part of how the human brain works. I think it's a neurological thing. But the more of those connections you pick up, the more you actually become interested in the overall topic itself. For example, when I was a kid, we had the, our home team, the Reds, the Big Red Machine, Sparky Anderson as the manager. And, we had the players, Joe Morgan, Pete
Johnny
Rose,
Bench.
and Johnny Bench, and
I was at his last game.
Dave Concepcion and Dan Seaver and all those guys. But the thing is, I knew the names, and then even a generation after that, I continued to know the names of the players on the Reds team. And a few names scattered around the rest of the league, too. But for me, I
remember Marge Schott?
Oh, yeah, Marge Schott, when she owned them.
Yeah. She
got in trouble for...
She got in all kinds of trouble. She's got a couple of car dealerships I would go to.
That's how she started out. Yeah, she had those big Great Dane... No, those dogs. They weren't Great Danes. They were St. Bernards, weren't they?
I don't remember that.
Shotzi?
I don't remember that.
She would have... There were one or two.
Were they in a commercial or something?
In commercials.
Oh. Well, I went to her car dealership to fix copiers every once in a while.
Oh, okay.
I never did meet her, but I would talk to some of the other guys, some of the salesmen and stuff about her. They said she was a character.
Yeah. No, she was colorful, which got her into trouble.
Yeah, all the time.
Anyway, thing is, today, I couldn't give a hoot about the Reds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, I'm not really all that interested in sports, but if I knew the players on the teams and knew anything about them, I probably would give a hoot. Enough to follow the games and the standings and stuff like that. But I don't. And it's because I don't know anything in that topic. And you give me the name of a player on the Reds and I don't have any associations to make whatsoever. And it's not an important topic. I'm not going to bother to go learn just so that I can be interested in the Reds. But I think that's a real phenomenon.
That is true.
And so often, but here's the other thing. So I am only minimally interested in, say, politics. And I should be more interested because today politics is important. But my natural inclinations just don't go that way. But I have a son who's very interested in it, both historically and current events wise. He's really good with names. And the thing is, when he talks about it, I'm almost always interested in everything he's saying because he curates the information, and the stuff he talks about is the interesting stuff. It's kind of like when we go to the Red River Gorge and, either you or Jason puts on one of your playlists. I never have time to go actually sample music and listen to new music, but you guys do. And the music we're listening to there isn't just like a shotgun of music that you've come across. You've curated it and found the interesting stuff, the fun stuff to listen to.
Okay.
And that's what we hear. Well, it can be that way with information too, about a topic. And it can be that way about religion. Now, different kinds of things may be what gets people hooked when it comes to religion. Some people are really interested in stories. They want to know, hey, this saint, that saint.
I tell you what, that's kind of almost every time I talk to my kids as they were growing up, it was in the form of some kind of story about religion. Anyway, because Mom always told us the stories of the saints. That's kind of just how I assume people are able to grow an interest in things. And also when I talk to them about American history, I don't tell them about the events of a particular battle, say, in the Revolution. Instead, I tell them a story about one of the characters in that battle and what happened to him personally. And my son has even approached me and said, Dad, when I sit in history class, it is the most painful, boring thing in the world. But whenever you talk about history, I'm really interested. And it's because of
exactly
picking out the right information.
So if you find our podcast really boring,
there might be
first of all,
others.
It means we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, tell us. You guys are boring.
Yeah. But here's the thing, don't give up on learning about the faith. Go find some other podcast because you'll find that one that clicks for you.
Yeah.
And it could be that in terms of really clicking with that interest, it could be that the podcaster out there ends up being, say, some Protestant or something like that.
Yeah.
And so you end up listening to it. But then what you got to do is be careful. And, if you become, hey, well, yeah, this stuff really is interesting. Now that I'm hearing it told the right way. Okay. But now you need to also, now that you've taken that interest, you need to make sure it's grounded and go find the Catholic correctives and that kind of stuff.
That is one way.
Yeah.
Other...
That's the two things I was saying. The first is, as you learn it, if you force yourself, there's a hump to get over, and then it becomes interesting.
Yeah.
And the second way is finding someone who gives you the right chunks of it initially that make it interesting, that can help you get over that hump.
The other thing is that, I think I've heard it said a lot of ways. Number one is, fake it until you make it. And that is, spend time in prayer, even though you don't have interest in prayer, and persevere for a while, giving God just a certain amount of time each day, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, and spend it in actual prayer, not just sitting and thinking. Have set prayers that you say.
God, but talking to God.
Either the rosary
Use
or
formula prayers.
The breviary is really the best way to do this. But if you do that, if you're open to it, because prayer is a two-way communication, eventually you will kind of develop an interest. Because, look, God is the creator of everything that is. There is no way in hell that he could be uninteresting. God is interesting. And all of the subjects in life can be found in God. So there's nothing there that you could consider. I mean, I guess there are uninteresting aspects to you or to me because we have preferences, and that's the way God made us. But whatever your preferences are, you can find that in God, because God did not make anyone who would be unable to find him interesting. It's just a matter of developing the relationship so that you know which area to go to and know which area to look into. And I think the rest will happen naturally and spiritually, but you do have to take that first step. Okay, I'm going to spend some time. The same way if you're married to a woman that, I mean, look, we've had arranged marriages throughout history. That's always been a thing.
Yeah, that's true.
If you've been arranged to be married to someone like Mary was, with Joseph, you're not going to get a whole lot out of that marriage if you don't spend some time. You gotta put the time in. And that's how it is with any friendship. friends that you've had that you haven't seen for a while. You might get together with them once in a while, and really all you do is kind of talk about old times because you don't have any real connection to them in real time. If you want to really have the friendship again, you actually have to spend a certain amount of time with them. Just doing whatever, fishing or playing pool or, you got to spend time. And so I think as uninteresting as it could be, you will create an interest if you put the time in, but you got to put the time in. And like I said, it's hard for me to even envision this because I've always had an interest in it. But, I guess I could imagine if someone told me, hey, look, it's important for you to be interested in baseball and you got to learn this stuff and this is somehow tied to my eternal salvation. That would be really tough. And I can imagine us telling someone, you need to have interest in religion and in God and to spend more time doing it and to spend more time learning about it. It's tough. It's a tough sell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're going to church every Sunday, then you believe something. You believe that God exists. And if you believe that, you have to take it to the next step. I mean, if he exists and he made it, you owe him everything.
That's what I've always said. I mean, people like, I don't know, a lot of Democrats maybe, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
They don't make sense to me because being Catholic in any sense whatsoever is just downright annoying. Just look at it from a human level. It's annoying to be Catholic. You whatever level of Catholic you are, there's these things you have to do, these obligations. Yeah, wait a minute, no meat on Fridays during the night. Okay, now I gotta remember that. I gotta make arrangements for meals. Go to mass every Sunday. Well, some Catholics consider that more of a suggestion. But the thing is, there's things that you have to do as a Catholic. There's obligations. And if you're going to say, okay, yes, I'm going to be Catholic and therefore I'm going to believe that these obligations are real because that's minimally what it means to be Catholic. Well, then why would you bother doing that if you didn't believe the need to go all the way with it?
Yeah. Yeah. If you've gotten that far. And I guess there are those people who are like, okay, I'm doing this because my wife said I have to do it. And I know guys like that exist.
Social pressure Catholics or whatever.
Okay. I guess I don't know what to say to you. I would hate to be in your shoes.
You're probably not listening to our podcast if you're that kind of Catholic.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless it's like your wife's got it on and
but maybe
you're just kind of driving. And yeah. But, so, I mean, if you are that guy, I don't know what to say to that because, I don't know. Look, if I'm doing something for the benefit of my wife and kids, like, they think that we ought to be doing this, and I do it because I want them to think that I believe that also. Well, then I still got to go all the way with that.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing, if I didn't think that it was right, I don't think I would agree to do it. Mm-hmm. I guess that's what I don't understand is guys who do this for their wives. And it's like, your wife is
believing it,
telling you have to go to church every week and you don't believe you should have to go to church every week. Then why the hell are you going?
What? Yeah.
Because I would never do that. I would never act to my son like I believe something that I don't believe just so he'll believe it. If I don't believe it, then why should I want my son to believe it?
You don't want him to believe it.
I want him to think the truth in everything. And so I'll never give him anything but the truth as far as I can see at the time. So I guess if you're listening to us, then you really do have a belief and an interest. And your best way of furthering that is to spend time in prayer.
Yeah, and making fruit out of it.
Yeah.
Spend time in prayer and spend time in study.
Yeah. And these two things will follow each other naturally if you give it the time. I don't know how long that time is. I guess for some guys it might be a couple months before they start really seeing anything from it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I don't. That's what's weird is to try. I have no guidance for the starter outer because I don't know about you, but I always took it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean that didn't mean that I was not a rationalizer. I mean, if I wanted to get away with something, I could rationalize with the best of them.
Right.
And there was plenty of stuff that I wanted to get away with that I did. But in terms of the faith itself, the realities behind it, and the need to know and learn and develop, I always kind of took the whole enchilada seriously.
I guess I do have one. Okay. Here's the thing. We say the rosary, and we have, as a family and as a church, devotions to Mary. I don't really understand the devotion to Mary. I don't. From an emotional standpoint, I guess. Intellectually, I get it. But I say the prayers, and I guess I am praying, and I am talking to Mary and through Mary to Jesus, but I don't quite understand devotion to Mary. But, I think at one time I did a little bit more than I do now, but there was a time in my life when it was a brief time. It lasted about a year. I had started praying. I had spent less and less time in prayer and then even less and less of that time saying things like Hail Marys and the Rosary. Mm-hmm. Still going to church, go to confession when I felt like I had to. And I wasn't living any kind of major sin, but I just wasn't praying much. And, I was talking to Jason. I don't know who he was quoting, and I don't even know the exact quote. But he was talking about the fact that if you're a Catholic and if you're not saying the rosary, you're probably not headed to heaven.
Huh.
And I just, that kind of stuck with me. I thought, I should start saying the rosary again. Or at least have some kind of structured prayer life that I follow on my own that's separated from everything else. So, it was around that time that I started saying the rosary again. And there were a couple other problems in my life that had festered that I didn't really understand how much they had festered until I started saying that rosary again. And then suddenly those problems got really big, really fast, and then they got better. I attribute that to the rosary. And so ever since then, I've been saying the rosary. But I don't even know how to explain what I'm trying to say, other than...
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you mean by understand? Because to me, understanding is an intellectual thing anyway. Do you mean like you don't feel anything emotionally when you pray the rosary? Is that all you mean?
Yeah, I feel certain connections to God. I feel love for God. I do not feel love for Mary. Or any kind of closeness to Mary. And I know guys who live for the rosary and talk about Mary as their mother. I don't feel Mary as a mom. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
I just don't enjoy that closeness. I guess kind of like the way some people talk about, going to confession, leaving the confessional and feeling this giant burden lifted from their shoulders. I have never felt that. Even when I've had to confess really bad things.
I do. I hate going to confession. I love having gone to confession.
Really? Yeah. I feel almost no different from when I went in, and I'm as honest about it as I could be. I don't hold back, and I don't ever lie to myself, let alone to a priest. But I've never felt that lifting of burden that people talk about. And in the same way, I've never felt any kind of relationship with Mary. But I have discovered that saying that rosary is pretty important. And if you're not saying the rosary, you're probably not on a path to heaven. Because if you're a Catholic, that's what the path to heaven looks like. Mm-hmm. I wish I could explain what I'm trying to say better, other than that just...
No, but I think it ties in nicely to what we're saying, because there are some things that you have to just do, both intellectually and willfully.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to will yourself to do these things.
Right.
That will not necessarily present themselves as immediate emotional rewards. You won't get necessarily enjoyment out of them.
Right. And I guess that's what a lot of religions tend to do, is give you some kind of emotional high every time you do this, or this. And I don't always get that from the same things that other Catholics do. But I do know that there's a giant difference in my life if I force myself to do them.
Yeah.
You know? I guess that's what I'm trying to say is, other areas of my life get better as long as I do these things. If I don't do them, I start slipping in my life in ways that I don't see until later when I start doing them again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I start falling for certain idiotic sins that I wouldn't have fallen for if I had continued with my prayer life.
Well, yeah, I think of prayer. I don't think of prayer. I think of prayer as what prayer is, but I sort of analogically compare prayer to mulch. When there's an area, a flower bed or a garden or whatever, that you mulch, over and over again, one of the things that mulch does and is supposed to do is to decompose. Part of the purpose of it is to decompose and become part of the soil. Yeah. Now, when you put it on, it's fresh, and the top layer of mulch helps keep moisture in and all that kind of stuff. But the point is, you keep adding mulch year after year, it decomposes, it goes into the soil, it makes the soil nice and loose, and when weeds crop up, there's a big difference pulling a weed out of a soil, a flower bed that has been mulched consistently for 20 years, versus pulling a weed out of a flower bed that has just freshly been planted and has, and it's only got its one layer of mulch on it for the first year.
Right.
And it's kind of like that with sins. When you have a regular prayer life, you recognize those sins, and it's like, oh, got to quit that. Just pull it out, throw it away. It's like a weed being pulled out of a deep layer of nice, loose soil that's been well mulched and well cared for over the years. Whereas if you let your prayer life go dry, and then sins develop out of that dryness, getting rid of them can be quite difficult, and you end up pulling it, and it breaks the stem off at the ground level. The root's still in there; it grows right back up again. Yeah,
that's true. And if you've gotten to that point, trying to rid yourself of the sin almost becomes impossible, to where it's like you need some kind of life upsetting event to even help you get rid of the sin, because it's so much become part of your life that you can't just pull it up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's true.
Either life upsetting event, or you have to stick with the prayers. And over the years of your prayer life, you realize, oh, wait a minute, now the soil has loosened enough. I can pull this out. A new one might grow back, because maybe a seed got left, but you'll pull the whole root up when it does come back again.
Yeah.
If you stick with those prayers. Now, it might take 20 years, just like it takes 20 years of mulching a flower bed to get the soil that nice. It might take 20 years of consistent prayer life.
Yeah. And, but, as we've said that in other podcasts, God has his own timetable and he does things at his pace. And if you're sincere in asking him and spending time every day asking him to remove a sin, he will do it. But sometimes it's like, well, you spent 20 years ignoring me. Now it's going to take 20 years of paying attention to get the help you need to get rid of the sin.
That's right. That's right. Because he wants your life. Because he wants to give you everything.
Yeah, we're back with that.
He's not a vending machine.
You owe him everything. He wants everything, and at the same time, he wants to give you everything. Mm-hmm. But if you are a bare minimalist, that's just not going to happen. It can't happen. All right, I think we're done, aren't we?
We've exhausted that topic.
Okay. Well, let's talk about news.
Yeah.
Let's see. Onslow, Western Australia. Sorry, folks. Let me start over. I moved my microphone, which, I moved the mic. I moved the mic to get it out of the way of the computer screen, but I did it kind of like as if I'm just moving something to the side, and I forgot, this is how
That's
people hear me.
Okay.
I need this here. Okay. Onslow, Western Australia reports the hottest day in recorded Australian history at 123.3 degrees.
Wow.
That is one hot day. But I would have thought it would be more than that, The absolute hottest in all history is 123.3. Yeah. In
how close
Onslow,
is that to the
Western
equator, though? Western Australia.
Let's see. The equator. Australia's not even on the equator, I don't think.
No, it's not on the equator,
below.
But is it in the tropical region?
I don't know.
Well.
But that's in all of Australia. I don't know if they mean it. No, they said in all of Australia.
Oh, okay.
Or at least in Australian history. So.
Recorded history. Okay, so
it's just
Australia is
really
not too far from the equator. Well, hold on though.
But no part of Australia is on the equator.
No, not on it. I'm trying to find a map that shows me Australia relative to the Tropic of Capricorn.
I don't even know where that is. I don't know.
Hold on. Here we go. Yeah, the Tropic of Capricorn travels right through about the middle of Australia.
Okay.
So between the Tropic of Cancer... So, okay, to explain to everybody, most people probably know, but what the tropics, the lines of tropic are, the Tropic of Cancer in the north and the Tropic of Capricorn in the south. So, you know that as the Earth is tilted on its axis of rotation, and so as it goes around the sun, there's a change during the different parts of the year as to what part of the world you can be in where the sun is exactly straight up overhead.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so the equator is the average, and the two tropical lines are the maximum extent north and south where the sun ever becomes exactly straight overhead.
I see.
So
I did not know what those were. I'm glad you explained that. Okay, so it's not on the equator, but it is in the
tropical region.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So,
well, anyway, it was hot.
Yeah.
Italy imposes a 6-month ban of hunting and other activities involving direct contact with boars in 14 rural areas where the spread of African swine fever has infected the animals. So, apparently, African swine fever is infecting areas in Italy, and they're keeping people from hunting swine because that's actually where it's coming from.
Okay.
This is in the wrong section. An armed man claiming to be the brother of Pakistani Al-Qaeda suspect holds congregation at hostage in Texas this week. This is a synagogue.
Church congregation?
Yeah.
Jewish congregation?
This is a Jewish synagogue, and he goes in there and he takes over the church or the synagogue and holds them all hostage. They were, they had a hostage negotiator talking to him for a while. Finally, they ended up shooting him. The demands he was making had nothing to do with Jews, though. I don't, it was kind of an odd situation.
Did it have to do with he was claiming to be the brother of
Afia Siddiqui?
Is he like some
I guess he's some kind of
who's under arrest right now or something?
Yeah, see, I can't tell if the guy was supposed to be under arrest or where did I see that? I saw that in He's a Pakistani national who is serving an 86-year sentence at the Federal Medical Center in Texas for an attempted murder and other felonies.
Did the guy's demands include releasing him?
I don't think so. That's the thing.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. It's kind of like...
demand? No, okay, I'm wrong. He did release his demand. That's what he...
Okay.
Yeah. So, I don't... The whole thing is stupid. What did this guy think he was going to be able to do? Yeah. Like, even if they released him, was he think he's going to somehow get on a bus and escape and not ever be seen? I mean, it was dumb. But as far as I know, none of the congregation were harmed. And we ended up shooting the guy. But this hostage situation in Texas existed for a while before. It was an 11-hour standoff. So.
Oh, okay.
So.
And they ended up shooting the guy.
Yeah. Okay. So we talked about a eruption of Hunga Tonga in the Pacific near Tonga, or actually as part of Tonga, last week. So, there were tsunamis and ashfall in all the surrounding islands.
Oh, wow.
From what I understand,
did people live on these surrounding islands? I mean,
yeah, I think so, but it looks like that actual island is almost gone, according to satellite pictures. I don't think we've even been able to get close enough to do much there.
Wow.
So if you look at a map, the Tonga is the closest. It's right, maybe a little bit east of New Zealand, north, but just barely east, and it's closer to Australia than anything. But all the way across the Pacific in South America, in Peru, there are 2 people killed by a tsunami from that eruption.
Wow. How long did it take for that tsunami to travel?
It must have been like 2 or 3 days.
How fast do tsunamis
I didn't know they traveled that fast. I mean, jeez.
Yeah.
And then the quake from the eruption was actually felt in Alaska. So it's like it's on the other side of the Pacific, and we're feeling it over on this side. So and then we're getting hit with this tsunami. So it must have been a pretty big eruption, but I don't think we've been able to get close enough to Tonga to find out what kind of damage has been done, especially to the people living in the surrounding islands.
Yeah, real quick, by the way, a couple things about the tsunami wave, just from a scientific interest. First of all, people may not realize water is generally non-compressible. So, like with air, like let's say a bomb goes off in air, and you've got an extremely high pressure right at the site where the bomb went off, and the further out you get away from the bomb, air itself is compressible, and so as it gets further away, the pressure wave gets lower. Now it gets dissipated because it's spreading over a surface area, but it also gets attenuated because of the compressibility of the air, and eventually it goes away to nothing. Water's not quite like that. Water is non-compressible, so the wave can be spread over a surface area, but it doesn't dissipate nearly as quickly. Yeah. So to be the same distance from a bomb in water is far more dangerous than being from that bomb in air.
So if you're in the air, 2 miles might be plenty, but underwater...
Not necessarily in water.
Yeah, okay.
So keep that in mind, and then consider this. A tsunami in water travels about 500 miles an hour. That's like a jet plane.
I did not know they traveled that fast. I thought 60 miles an hour was fast.
I thought maybe a car.
Yeah. I thought you could outrun one, but I guess not.
No, not even close.
Even in a jet plane, you'd have trouble.
I don't think there's a boat that has ever been invented that could outrun a tsunami.
Wow, I had no idea. Do tsunamis, like a tsunami like that, I wonder if it's something that might be traveling underwater that can't be seen, like and then suddenly you see it as it gets closer to shore. It starts growing and growing higher on the surface.
Right, and if it's like it would be like one of those phenomenon if there's a rarefaction followed by or a compression followed by a rarefaction, that like the way a lot of waves travel. I wonder if there's like a phenomenon where like suddenly all the water seems to be sucked from the beach out into the sea.
Oh, and it's like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden...
yeah, wham.
Yeah, so, 2 people are killed. It says a small tsunami, but I don't know what small means if it killed 2 people. But, of course, they could be people who were out on their boats. Offshore.
The boat flipped or any number of things there.
Not necessarily
the fact that it was felt across the Atlantic like that.
Pacific.
Across the Pacific.
Yeah. Pretty severe.
Wow.
Sweden announces that it will withdraw troops from a French-led special forces mission in Mali later this year in response to Mali's inviting private Russian military contractors to fight Islam rebels. The whole thing going on in Mali is just really weird. But Sweden, why is Sweden even involved in that?
So the French sent in special mission forces, and Sweden said, okay, we'll join your forces. And now the Russians are saying, well, we're going to send in some anti-Muslim forces. And so the Swedish are saying...
Not anti-Muslim. Oh, yeah, anti-Muslim. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's weird. I don't... every week when I go over the news, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Mali that I've been kind of ignoring because I have no idea where Mali is. At least I had no idea. But it just seems to... It's been going on for 2 years. It never peters out. It's like...
For those who don't know, think interior northern Africa, like level with, like not quite as northern as Libya or Egypt, but same latitude as Sudan.
Yeah.
But on the other side, but not right on the coast.
But why is Sweden... I didn't even know Sweden had troops.
Well, every country has some kind of troops, but why is Sweden joining France?
Yeah.
In Mali. I mean, what's going on in Mali that Sweden thought they had some kind of interest in?
It's weird. Okay, so you'll like this. So, Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries announces that the UK's state broadcaster BBC will be reformed. I don't know what that means, reformed. With the television license fee being abolished in 2027. I think that means you don't have to have a license to watch TV anymore.
And as of 2027, Britain is finally catching up in some small way to the modern world.
Yeah, but this isn't like 5 years from now.
Yeah,
that's so dumb.
Oh,
why not just say?
They gotta wait 5 years because they have to find some way to replace that revenue.
Yeah. Funding of the BBC will also be frozen for the next 2 years.
Well,
that's such a weird.
Okay.
It's a weird.
The BBC, I mean, in the British mind, ultimately everything has to be under, in some manner, the control of the state. You can't have unplanned chaos. I mean, Americans historically have been fine with that, and we've been a much stronger nation for it.
And we've had better TV.
Yeah, better TV. Now,
I love some British shows, but let's face it, American TV is better.
It's just plain better. Well, maybe British TV will start getting better too.
Yeah, now that they've maybe they'll have more than one channel. Mm-hmm. Silly. Canada deploys a small contingent of special forces to Ukraine as part of the NATO response to deter Russian aggression.
Okay.
So
are they just like making good on their obligations as being part of NATO, though?
Well, I think so. Also, one of their tasks is going to be evacuating the Canadian embassy in case of a full-scale invasion. Okay. So I think they're just there to guard their own people and to get them out if they have to, which they probably will. UK is supplying all kinds of anti-tank missiles to Ukraine. And I think this is a big part of it, because if Russia attacks, I imagine that first wave is going to be mostly tanks. And the U.S. is also giving them javelins, which is anti-tank stuff.
Missiles.
And Biden says that the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine will result in a more severe penalty that we've been, more than the sanctions that we've been putting on Russia. But he seems to think that this will happen, that Russia will be invading soon. And I guess that's what everyone's thinking.
There's always this phenomenon in American politics. They call it a rally around the chief phenomenon. Presidents who enter into a war always experience a surge in popularity.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen this time.
Well, that's why FDR
I mean, maybe that's why he's trying. But,
but I wonder if this is... I wonder if this... Because, I mean, this is something that I would expect Trump to do.
Yeah.
But I mean, Biden... I wonder if this is just one of those... It's like, hey, this thing with Russia, let's go ahead and put ourselves in a position where we're going to end up having to go to war, and that'll be how we cause your popularity to spike in time for the next election.
Yeah,
course, I don't know what that would mean, because will Biden even be capable of completing a sentence in 2 years? I don't know, but
I think it doesn't matter. I think they've demonstrated.
It matters either, but I think this is part of the motivation.
I don't know. I think they've demonstrated that they don't even care how much people like or dislike the guy that they put in charge. And I guess that's, you talked about not caring a whole lot about politics. And that's kind of where I am again. Unless unless it looks like there's some kind of hope for politics, like when Trump was around. You know, when Trump was here, I cared a whole lot about politics. But now, I don't even know who's doing what. And I don't care because I've gotten to a point where I don't think there's anything we can do about it. So, and I think a lot of America is that way. And I think that, I think that's to their advantage because there's nobody fighting them anymore. I'm not fighting politics because I don't feel like I could win anyway. And I don't know. I don't think those kinds of motivations exist anymore. I think politics have taken on a new, where they don't even have to pretend that they're trying to win votes or, voter.
Could be. Well, we'll see. I'm still perhaps naively hopeful that it's not that way.
Well, that would be great if it's not. But either way, I mean, it looks like, right now it's looking like at least Ukraine will be at war with Russia, which they've been kind of at war with Russia for a long time now. But is America going to get involved in that? In like an actual war with Russia, which we haven't. I mean, think of all the decades that we spent trying not to let that happen. And the thing is that back then there were two superpowers, USSR and America. Well, now there are kind of several superpowers, including China, and we don't know what kind of what China would do.
That's another thing. Where's China?
That's kind of scary.
If Russia and say the U.S. get into it, I don't know. It's a big deal. You know what? Maybe the Pope will actually follow through with the consecration of Russia to Mary's heart.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Not maybe out of religious motivations.
Maybe, maybe he's like, I love Russia. I consecrate her to. I don't know. Pope.
The thing is, he's more of a friend of China.
Yeah.
Anyway, if that were to happen, I mean, just look how big Russia is. If Russia really were to be converted truly, that would be kind of magnificent.
Yeah. What if Russia became capitalist? There'd be no stopping them.
Well, the thing is, it's. I mean, there's.
Well, I don't know.
And then there's worldwide capitalists. The thing about when I was there, I was talking to a priest there because I would go to the market and they have these markets set up where it's like, think of like flea markets.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the normal way of buying, at least in Scope where I was. It was kind of like the normal way of buying and selling any kind of regular goods. They did have various, shops that were maybe specific to this or that. Some of them targeted to tourists. Some of them, like they might have a shop just for antiques or something like that. But most of the just regular stuff that you would want, clothes and that kind of stuff, it was kind of like a flea market. And they were these like sort of like lockable like trailer boxes that were just like all lined up in this sort of maze hodgepodge. Where they would lay boards down because if it rained, the areas got muddy, and you would just walk in this area. You could get lost there. But during the day, they would open up the fronts of them and they would sell their goods out of them, and at night they'd put everything away and close it down. Well, I was talking to the priest there, and he said that, the Russian people lived for so long, just generationally under communism, that now this was a few years ago that I was there, but he said they don't, just at a personal level, person to person, culturally, they can't even conceive of this capitalist idea of modifying your prices in order to achieve a different kind of outcome. So it's like, well, if what you do is sell hats, you sell those whatever beaver skin hats or whatever, and you're not selling enough to make enough money to live on. And he said, well, lower your price so that you could sell more. And they said, well, I can't do that. The price is 35, whatever. Let's say it's $35. It's probably like 120 rubles. Well, that's just what the price was, and that's how people thought of it. Well, how can I change the price of something? It's almost like changing the price of something is like changing a hat into a pair of boots or something.
Yeah.
They couldn't even conceive of that being something that you could just set for yourself.
Yeah, you're right. It could be so culturally ingrained on them that they don't know how.
Yeah, well, at least won't happen overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, America's a unique place. There was an independent investigation to look into, the Diary of Anne Frank, to look into who is responsible for reporting their family to the Nazis. And they found someone.
Okay.
Arnold van den Berg, a member of Amsterdam's Jewish Council, is probably the person who turned them in and led to their death. So, could you imagine being that guy?
Gosh, I know.
Like the most famous traitor. It'd be like being Benedict Arnold, Oh, the guy's name is Arnold too.
Yeah,
Arnold van den Berg.
Something about
That's
the name
funny.
Arnold. Guys, don't name your sons Arnold.
And he's a member of the Amsterdam's Jewish Council. Huh.
My.
Yeah. Hey, Arnold. Don't ever name your kid Arnold. There's also a earthquake in Afghanistan. 26 people are killed. It's a 5.3 earthquake. So
you had two
it's like
earthquakes last week.
Yeah, and those were 6-point-somethings.
Yeah.
This one's only a 5.3, but it still killed 26 people.
More than 24 people. Wow.
29 people are killed during a stampede at a Pentecostal church in Liberia.
A human stampede?
Yeah, it was triggered when, I guess it was during a prayer, whatever they have in Pentecostal churches. Mm-hmm. Some gangsters entered into the prayer ground, and I think what had happened is they had just taken up a collection. I guess, like they do at churches, and everybody gives their money in the basket. And some gangsters came in and tried to take the money, and there was a stampede. 29 people died. That must have been one heck of a big church.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people there anyway. Supreme Court gives another blow to the abortion providers in Texas. I guess what they did is they refused to give. How did they do this? See, I can't quite understand this. There was the heartbeat bill in Texas, and
Missouri. Texas has the lawsuit bill.
Okay. There's also a heartbeat law.
Yeah. Well, okay. So like the main law in Texas that everybody's talking about, I understand.
I wonder if this is another bill that now they are fighting.
Well, maybe
maybe they refuse to hear this one, which puts even more restrictions on Texas abortion providers.
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah. This year they did enact a heartbeat bill law that went into effect in September last year. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is new.
One more good thing happening. In this case, it is so important to be saying the rosary to end abortion. Of all the things that we can do to keep America going as the greatest nation ever started, this is it. Ending abortion is... I don't think we even stand a chance of continuing if we don't stop abortion. It is bigger than ending slavery was. Mm-hmm. if we want America to continue, we've got to quit killing our babies. And this is how we do it. This is the closest we've ever come. So just keep praying for that. Very important.
Yeah.
And that's all the news I got.
Okay. Well, I've got some news. You know, I just realized I was putting these together and it didn't strike me at first, but like 4 of my 5 news articles are about police or involve the police.
Oh.
The last one, I don't know. Maybe they could involve the police. We'll have to see.
Yeah. I didn't get any emails from you.
What's that?
I didn't get any emails from you, so if I have to look at anything...
You know what? Let me... you're right. I completely forgot to send those. Hold on. Compose... Yeah, I can send this to you real quick.
Okay.
All right. On its way. Okay. So, first, police in South Carolina apparently have arrested one of the characters from Disney's movie. They've got some like body cam footage. Disney's movie Frozen, the one that can make the ice, I guess.
Yeah.
Apparently they've arrested her for all of the snow.
Wait a minute. Okay.
No. So basically there was a snowstorm and there's some body cam footage of someone dressed as Elsa, kind of like just having fun with the snow.
Yeah.
Then she saw a policeman and ran.
Okay. Apparently she's still at large.
Somebody yelled freeze. And she could be heard saying, "Come on guys, just let it go." I guess that's like the words of one of the songs or something like that.
Yeah, I don't...
Says her accomplice, the abominable snowman, still at large, used the short parody to include a reminder to be safe on the roads. So they're just kind of like having fun with it.
Okay. So they didn't really try to arrest Elsa. Okay, see, here's the thing. That is the one... I've never seen that movie all the way through.
I don't think I have either.
I am convinced that... I mean, I've heard about it. I haven't watched it, but I've heard a lot about it. And I am convinced it's a gay movie.
Oh, like...
It is there specifically to prep kids for gayness.
Oh, because like she's different, and it's like
it's just
like gayness is just different kind of thing.
I don't even know. I've been told. I don't know. It seems like a dumb movie anyway, but
yeah.
The thing is, little girls are. It's like bigger than Little Mermaid was. Which, do you remember Little Mermaid? Why were not more people saying this is a terrible movie? This is a terrible thing to teach kids.
Yeah.
Here's this...
Do everything you're not supposed to do, and then it works out in the end. Yeah.
And this girl who wants to be something other than a girl...
Than what she is. Yeah.
And then it's like, in the end, the final conversation is, well, you gotta let kids be themselves. But it's like... But she doesn't want to be herself. She wants to be...
Something else.
Something of another species.
Yeah. That's true.
It takes your magic to make her that. So...
Well, in the original Little Mermaid story, the fairy tale, which the original fairy tales always had real lessons. In the original Little Mermaid fairy tale, she managed to become human and then lived a miserable life.
Yeah. That would have been a good... Yeah.
Her husband beat her, stuff like that.
Yeah. That would have been the way to do it.
Well, like I said, Disney's tagline ought to be destroy, or not destroying, I can't remember the word I originally used, but like basically messing up fairy tales for every generation.
Yeah.
Ruining fairy tales
They do.
for every generation.
They mess it up, and they certainly messed up that one. I can imagine that Frozen is much the same.
Yeah, I think Frozen is just dumb anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, next, this is just kind of fun. Jefferson City, Missouri. So the police were like testing out one of their alert things, and you know how people always come up with goofy stuff when they're testing software and that kind of stuff. Well, somebody accidentally clicked a setting that allowed it to go out for real to the public, and they sent out this like statewide alert. The state police sent out this statewide alert from Gotham City, Missouri, asking people to be on the lookout for a purple and green 1978 Dodge.
Oh yeah,
GT, which is the Joker car.
So it sent out accidentally tested, but sent out a
tweet to a bunch of people, like real citizens.
Because the programmers and the people creating the system were setting up fake tweets that they would use as test tweets. Mm-hmm. And that was one of them, and it accidentally got sent out to the public.
Yeah.
I met Batman.
So during the test, an option was incorrectly selected, allowing the message to be disseminated to the public.
We went to a restaurant. It was like the first restaurant we had been to after things started to open up after COVID. Mm-hmm. It was Sam was going away to the military, and it was his goodbye meal.
Yeah.
But we had to go. It was like an hour and a half away. But on the way back, we passed this little. It's like a shopping mall, and it's one of those real small cities in the middle of nowhere. And there was like a plaza there, and there was this guy who had this. It wasn't a Batman mobile, but it was a limo, and he had kind of done it up to make it look like the Batmobile. Oh. Mm-hmm. And he was standing on top of it, dressed in a Batman suit, and just standing there waving to people.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? So we pulled over, and he was having fun. You know, he would do this weird thing when he jumped off the car, and so you could go get your picture taken with him and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
And then he had a little basket there. He was asking for money. I think it was just some bum who happened to have access to a limousine, maybe an old limousine, and he was trying to make money, and that's how he was making money. I don't know. Everybody had their picture taken with Batman. I think I got a picture of me fighting with him. Maybe I'll put it on the,
kind of like,
we were like holding up our dukes and stuff like that.
Right.
I'll put a picture of it on
put that up
in the show notes. It was fun. It was a goofy thing that people do. All right.
All right. Next, another policeman story. Some popo do a little too little. A couple of police officers. So, have you ever heard of that game called Pokemon Go? No, yeah. Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
Two police officers in LA ignored a robbery in progress because they were playing Pokemon Go.
No. Really?
Really.
I mean,
recently released court documents showed that they lost their appeal against multiple accounts of misconduct, which had in part been based on a recording of them in their patrol car. The men lost the appeal. Digital in-car video system captured them willfully abdicating their duty to assist a commanding officer's response to a robbery in progress and playing Pokemon mobile phone game while on duty.
I guess.
Okay, so.
See, I guess that my age is showing here because it's like you think of cops as being, even if they're bad cops, which I think there's a lot of them out there, but being serious about their jobs to the point where they wouldn't have any interest in playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
and
the bad cops in I guess the bad cop image in our generation is the cop who thinks himself as God, and so he can do what it takes to get the bad guy, whatever, break the rules, so on and so forth. But not the cop who uses his patrol car to go find places to collect Pokemon. Is that what you do? You go somewhere and collect Pokemon using the Pokemon Go game.
Yeah, and it'll give you a GPS coordinate and say there's Pokemon there. Go get him or fight him, or I don't even know how they collect them, but I know that some of my kids do it. And I think of it something that kids do, and not an adult who's in any way serious about life. But apparently cops in LA. But look, if you're in LA, they've shown what they think about cops. And I mean, I don't even understand how there are still cops there. I mean, they're like the most hated people in the world.
These two are sort of making the case for the whole defund the police movement.
Yeah.
It's like, if that's what you're going to do as cops, we really don't need you around.
Right. But that's what we want them to do, according to the whole defund the police thing. We don't want them to be real stopping bad guys or anything like that. So, I don't know what to say about this. It's like...
Yeah, it's weird.
And it's such a weird position for me to be in, because on the one hand, I know we need cops. We need somebody. There needs to be a threat against a normal person who would desire to do something illegal, like hurt you or steal your stuff. There needs to be some kind of thing that you can say, if you do this, you'll suffer these consequences and at the hands of a policeman, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I need to have something against an old man walking down the street. He needs to be able to call a cop and say, some guy just beat me up or took my money or something like that. And that's what the cop needs to be there for. On the other hand, it's very, very rare that that's the kind of thing that a cop does.
Yeah.
Is protect the public from bad guys. It's just, they seem to do all kinds of other stuff. Like give you tickets for not having your seatbelt on. For heaven's sakes. That's gotta be the dumbest thing in the world. Why do they care if I have my seatbelt on?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is insane. If I don't have my seatbelt on, I might get hurt if I'm in a wreck. And then I'm the one who suffers for it. It doesn't make anyone else get hurt. Why do they care if I have my seatbelt on? It's so stupid.
You know, I kind of like have in my mind like this hierarchy of gutter jobs, like, you know, like the least useful, the most like human waste kind of jobs. Like for example, the person who on the way out of Sam's Club, which I know you don't go to Sam's Club anyway, but they have a person whose job it is to look at what you bought to make sure you're not stealing anything and mark your receipt.
Yeah.
On the way, and you got to stop. Everybody lines up and stops on the way out of Sam's Club. I hate going there because of that. Yeah, it's stupid. Well, okay, that's like, you know, and then there's you know, cops whose job is to man the speed radars. Well, I decided that the lowest of the low, it's like if you get assigned this duty, it's because you are just absolutely, completely worthless as a human being, at least in you know, societal terms. In certain states, they have these, what are called HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle, which just means you have at least two people in your car.
Okay.
And there's special lanes that it's like, okay, well, because like everybody's commuting to work, most people are commuting by themselves. We'll encourage, car pooling,
carpool lanes
by setting special lanes for people who have at least two people. And because there are not as many cars that have two people, you might be able to go a little bit faster during rush hour.
Yeah.
I saw there are police whose duty is to stand and watch the cars in that lane to make sure they have at least two people.
Yeah. What a job.
Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh. If I had that job, I would quit my job as a policeman and go become a trash collector. It would be a step up.
Yeah. See, it's so weird because the right-wingers are so for the police. And I don't get that. Remember, at the beginning of the Trump phenomenon, there were Trump rallies in California. And people would go there, and then there would be protesters who aren't really protesters. They're just there to beat up Trump supporters. And the police were standing by letting this happen. They were not interfering with people getting beat up and hurt.
Yeah.
And these same groups of people who are for Trump are also having pro-police rallies trying to shut down the defund the police people.
Right.
And it's like, don't you remember when the cops stood there and watched us get beat up? Don't you remember that? Why are you for these people?
Yeah.
Right now, something needs to happen to make them a different set of people. Because the guys who are there now are not good people. Cops...
replace the... That's the thing, though. As conservatives generally, we recognize that a jurisdiction, a civil jurisdiction, city or county or whatever, ought to have a police force.
Yeah.
It's a thing that ought to be there. The people who are doing it right now, especially these very liberal cities, are garbage. They need to be replaced, not defunded.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, if I were a cop, even if I had a terrible boss who told me, do not interfere with the crowd, do not keep them from beating up these people, I just wouldn't obey.
Yeah.
I'd go ahead and I have a gun and a nightstick. I have to take action here. I gotta stop them from doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't see cops doing that. So I don't know what to say. And now we got them in LA playing Pokemon instead of interrupting robberies.
Helping their commander stop a robbery in progress.
Yeah. So I guess I don't see that big a difference between what I saw before. So
now this is only a couple of guys.
Yeah, there's two guys in LA.
And they did get fired. But, like I said, they are making the case for the whole defund the police thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
our next police news happens across the pond in Cambridgeshire, England. About 50 miles north of London.
Okay.
Somebody on the M11 motorway, which is English for highway, spotted what they thought looked like a person rolled up into a rug because the feet were sticking out.
Oh, okay.
So they called the police, and the police pulled the car over, and it was a mannequin of Prince Charming. It was headed to a birthday party with, it's like a theme kind of birthday party.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if he got a ticket.
No, it says the driver said, or the police force said that the driver was given advice to avoid such circumstances again. Probably just cover your mannequin up all the way.
Hide that thing a little.
All right. Anyway, let's see. What's my next? Okay, my next one does not have anything directly to do with police. But apparently they found out. So, that pufferfish have certain toxins in them. Well, they found that they think dolphin are like sucking on them to get high. And
really?
Even kind of passing them around the way people will pass a joint around.
I wonder if they actually saw it happen. It'd be... They could test that and just put a pufferfish in the Dolphins, tank. See if it happened.
Yeah, it says in extraordinary
footage captured.
For a new documentary, young dolphins were seen carefully manipulating a certain kind of pufferfish. In order to continue reading, I'd have to get a register with the Independent.
Okay, so what I wonder though is if it was one of those things where it's like, okay, if a pufferfish gets scared, it puffs up and then it's like a bobber.
Oh.
And I wonder if they're just playing with it, because it's like, here's a ball that, look, we take it down and it floats back up.
It's kind of like reverse. Like we throw a ball up, they throw the ball down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, well, you know what? It's coming out as a documentary, so maybe we'll see the documentary and we can draw our own conclusions.
I wonder what document... I'll have to see that documentary. You know... do you get Netflix?
No.
Okay, I turned off my Netflix, and
I did too.
Had other services, but I have to admit, if you like nature shows, Netflix has the best nature shows. I mean, it's got a lot of them, and I can't watch, like, I'll watch one and then maybe a year or 2 years later I'll watch the same one because, you forget the stuff. But, I do miss the nature shows because they had a lot of them on. And some really high quality, footage of animals and stuff. Has
Netflix settled down? Because I dropped it. I mean, they had that show come out about the preteen girls basically, doing, the very suggestive dances and stuff like that. And they claimed, it's just a show about how they're exploited. Well, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, you're putting them all on TV so people can, so perverts can oogle them. And then and I didn't cut it then. I cut it when they came out with what was it, like the gay druggy Jesus movie or series that they had. That's when I dropped it. And then after that, they came out with this other like series that was all like gay sex or something like that. Something about a tiger trainer. That might have been the name of the series. I forget. But anyway, But I haven't heard. But the thing is, I was hearing them come out with this stuff and then going, look, Netflix really has this stuff. I haven't heard anything about Netflix lately. Have they maybe like sort of turned around and decided to not do that kind of stuff anymore?
No, I think it's because the political narrative has died. I think, look, I hate to put this back to this subject, but after Trump lost, I think most people, it was kind of like there was nothing to fight anymore. And it was things like, I mean, Netflix was a big part of the cancel culture. They were one of the tech people who were trying to kill, conservatism. And I think the conversation died, and I think it's because we stopped engaging in it. And I think all the same shows are probably still being created and still there on Netflix.
Because we used to all have Netflix. It's like, well, okay, I canceled it. Well, now there's no reason for me to talk about Netflix.
Yeah. I think the people who were going to cancel have canceled, and probably their support base or the members have kind of plateaued, and it's like we could pretty much do anything we wanted at this point, and these people will still continue to subscribe. So I think that's probably why you don't hear them about them anymore.
Makes
maybe.
sense.
I do miss those nature shows, but I'm going to find a way to download them onto my hard drive. It's just that when you download stuff to put it on your hard drive, you tend to do it in lower settings because it takes up less room. And if I'm going to download, but the part of the appeal was the really high quality.
That's the cool thing about modern nature shows is that they've got those high quality cameras and stuff.
Yeah, so it almost looks like you're there. And so if I'm going to put them on my hard drive, if I'm going to get the full effect, I almost have to make them take up like half the hard drive. Maybe I'll get one specific hard drive just for the nature shows and just add that to my network.
There you go. All right.
Oh, well.
Well, anyway, and maybe when these Dolphins come out, you'll have one more to download, but that is the end of my news.
Okay. So, I didn't do a whole lot of research on saints this week, but I did want to talk about Saint Tarcisius, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you say his name.
This is, 3rd century, one of the early martyrs. But the thing about him was that there were Christians in jail who, we wanted to get communion to them. We wanted to get the Eucharist to them. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the kind of a spy type guy who would take the Eucharist to prisoners. And so, or at least this is the narrative anyway. Because I think there are a couple of versions of this. But, he was taking the Eucharist to prisoners, and somebody saw him holding something against his chest and wanted to see it and wanted him to show him what he had. And he would not give it to them. I don't know if they knew it was a Eucharist or not.
I don't know whether
I never found that out.
It could be that they, we don't know how it really happened. I mean, it might have been that it was just kind of initially, hey, what do you got there? Well, I'm taking the sacred mysteries to the prisoners. Hey, I want to see, that kind of, or it might have just been, what do you got? I want to see. No, you can't see this. That, this is too important or whatever. We don't really know how it happened. There's a poem. Most of what we do know about him is, because of a poem composed by Pope Damasus.
I didn't even know about that poem. Where's his poem? Let's read it.
I don't know. I don't know the poem. I just see the fact that there was a poem. I'm looking at the New Advent Catholic Encyclopedia. You know what? The poem itself, maybe it was translated.
It's just a 5-line, I think.
The way Pope Damasus describes it, and he's comparing Tarcisius to Saint Stephen, who we read of his martyrdom in the Bible. He was carrying the Blessed Sacrament, attacked by a heathen rabble, and suffered death rather than surrender the sacred body of Christ to the raging dogs. But hardly anything's known about his person. He's referred to as an acolyte. Typically a deacon would carry the host to these prisoners, but there was none available at this time, so he agreed to do it. And he was attacked and killed because he wouldn't give it over to this gang of boys or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was the big thing, is that, he was unwilling to give a gang of boys that ended up becoming an entire mob. He was unwilling to give them the Eucharist or to let them see it or to let them do anything with it. And that was how he died.
Think of the reverence that, for the Eucharist that he had and that the Christian community had then, that allowed him to grow into that sense of reverence. And compare that to what we have today.
Yeah, it's a shame. We've got cases where infidels come and receive communion openly, and our bishops let it happen.
Give them away. Give it away.
This is our Eucharist. This is the life of the church. And you're treating it like it's some kind of entrance.
Like candy or something.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And we've got saints like Saint Tarcisius must be turning in his grave. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's a good saint to pray to during these times,
in this
about
time.
These times. I cannot find this poem anywhere. I keep seeing little things about. There's a poem composed by Pope Damasus. Yeah, I see a Latin version here. Maybe it hasn't been translated to English. Maybe nobody's translated. Yeah, wait a minute, here we go. You who read, whoever you are, recognize the equal merit of the two, to whom Damasus the bishop has dedicated this inscription after their rewards. The Jewish people stoned Stephen when he was instructing them on a better course. He who carried off the trophy from the enemy, the faithful deacon, first laid hold of martyrdom. When a raving gang was pressed by holy Tarcisius to reveal to the uninitiated the sacraments of Christ that he was carrying, he wished rather to release his spirit, struck down, than to betray the heavenly limbs to mad dogs. That's a direct translation. I imagine it sounds more poetic in Latin. And maybe it's got, rhythm to it or something like that. You know what? I am in the middle of translating my second Shakespeare book.
From English to English?
Yeah, from English to English, Old English to New English. Part of what I'm doing is trying to, when Shakespeare had a rhythm and a rhyming scheme, to try to keep that in the translation, to have it translate truly, and at the same time keep the rhythms and keep the rhyming schemes. I wonder.
Right.
That would be the kind of project I could do with this if I knew Latin. I would, I'm going to try to translate this. Not right now, but to make it sound more poetic. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that is Saint Tarcisius. He is the patron of altar servers and first communicants. Died 3rd century. So, pray to Saint Tarcisius. It's apt that we pray to him at a time like this, for both our Pope and our bishops who lack that kind of courage and commitment. And I think that's all we got.
Okay.
Well, folks, think about what we said, and as always,
circle the beads.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.